Uh, so again, most of you would have known us from our startup accelerators, but for those who are joining us through the Caribbean Startup Bootcamp, it's led, of course, by the Founder Institute Caribbean team. We are a part of Connector Caribbean, which comprises of over 30 entrepreneurship support organizations throughout the region. It's an initiative that's led by Carib Equity, a facility that's co-funded by both the IDB Lab and the European Union. So shout out to our European guests who are here, even those who are part of the team, Nike and Michael. Much love to the EU for making all this happen. And of course, our goal here is for us to work together to build a more connected entrepreneurial ecosystem across the Caribbean. And by Caribbean, we also give love to those in Latin America because, as you know, the Caribbean Sea, a lot of Latin American countries border the Caribbean Sea. So we're here to share the love. For most of the founders and mentors who are participating in Caribbean Startup Bootcamp, you may be new to the ecosystem, new to Founder Institute. So just quickly, Founder Institute is a global organization. We are the world's largest AI native company builder. We operate in over 100 plus countries, over 200 cities around the world. Since 2009, we have graduated over 9,000 startups. Really proud about that. They have gone on to raise over 2 billion US dollars in pre-seed funding. Collectively, their value exceeds 20 billion US dollars, and they benefit from a global mentor network in excess of 35,000 mentors all around the world, including, Nike, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're about 146 here in the Caribbean, mentors, that is, participating in the Caribbean chapter. And in Caribbean Startup Bootcamp in particular, we're at 33 mentors. So a small region, but we're certainly making a dent. And then lastly, our community benefits from our global venture network. It exceeds over 5,000 investors globally. So that's just a little background on Founder Institute Caribbean. And here's the local team that makes it all happen. Nike Schmidt is our program manager. Dr. Michael Stabelin heads up our partnerships. Most of you know Adana because she leads our communications efforts. And yours truly, I sort of steer the ship and keep things going. But I'd love to give everyone a minute just to introduce themselves. Perhaps we start with you, Nike.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Nike. I'm an attorney by training and the co-founder of a fintech company together with Rawl. So we know what you're all going through when you try to start a company. And I'm the program manager for Fund Institute Caribbean. But for you bootcamp people, hello. Most of you have already heard from me as well. I'm the incubation manager in this program. And here for you, if you have any questions about the program, feel free to reach out to me. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you so much, Nike. Michael?
Thanks, Raul. I would be so happy to try to top your energy, but I never can. I'm Dr. Michael Stablin. I'm a Colombian American based out of Chicago. Happy to be working with the Founder Institute in the Caribbean chapter, where I lead partnerships, as Raul mentioned. So we're strategically looking to reach out to other organizations to benefit you founders and our entrepreneurial ecosystem, thus growing everything that's going on in the Caribbean and around the world to promote entrepreneurship for eager individuals like yourself. I'm especially enthusiastic to talk about my strategic consulting that I do in different parts of the world, but I think the more important thing is that we learn about you and what we can do for you guys to grow your businesses and advance your dreams for making your life what you want it to be. I'll share a little bit more information, but I'm going to pass it off to our team member, Adana, to tell you about what inspires her and why she's here for you guys.
Thank you very much,
for
Michael.
Thank you for that warm intro, Michael. Hi, everyone. My name is Adana. I am the communications manager here at Founder Institute Caribbean. So I am in charge of all things communication across our social media posts, content, ensuring that you have your brand kits, communicating to our mentors, founders, and investors. I am very passionate about helping entrepreneurs, particularly in the Caribbean, because I know the challenges that we face, me being an entrepreneur myself and have always loved the entrepreneurial space. And I look forward to meeting all of you all. Hopefully, we could probably see each other physically. I'm from Trinidad, by the way, and I'm happy to see everyone here. Hi, Mika. Happy to see everyone here from all over the world.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adana. And last but not least, yours truly, I am the chief cheerleader. I keep things going behind the scenes, ensuring that we have a well-oiled machine. In addition to leading Founder Institute Caribbean, as Nikki would have shared, I'm also a founder myself. Nikki and I co-founded a payments company, so we operate in the fintech space. In addition to which, both Nikki and I, and actually Michael, have also graduated from Venture Institute. So we're also in the process of launching our own venture capital fund to support you all. So we would like, in an ideal world, to not just help you build your companies, but to also be that first check. So that's us. We can't do it without the support of our corporate partners. I would have shared before that the Caribbean Startup Bootcamp is supported through the Carib Equity Facility, which is funded by IDB Lab and the European Union. But in our core program, we are supported by three partners: Cayman Enterprise City, which leads the Special Economic Zone in Cayman Islands. So for those of you who are looking for a physical presence in the Cayman Islands, they can facilitate a soft landing, providing you with resources on the ground, including a pathway to immigrate to the Cayman Islands. Levuka Venture Lab is our venture engineering partner. They help us with co-building your products. So
talking about pathways to immigrate to the Cayman.
Someone needs to be muted. All right, so they help to co-build your products, everything on the engineering side, but in addition to engineering, they also help with go-to-market strategy, ensuring that you are structured to receive investments, and they leverage their global network as well. Solace Credit, last but not least, is our newest partner, and they facilitate insurance financing for all of the startups graduating out of our accelerators. They help not just your business, but also your team in terms of financing your insurance premiums. So thank you again to all of our partners, Cayman Enterprise City, Levuka Venture Lab, and Solace Credit, without whom none of this would be possible. All right. So the star of the show today, give it up for Mellissa Lezama. As I shared, she's the founder and CEO of the HR Horizon. She's an attorney at law, specializing in global HR and employment law. However, not only is she just a mentor at Founder Institute Caribbean, but she also mentors at the South African chapter and the Moroccan chapter. I don't know how she does it all. I have no idea, but we'll soon find out. And fun fact, her husband, Ryan Roper, is an alumnus of Founder Institute Caribbean. So, Mellissa, we're really excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for everything that you're about to share in advance. And that's it for me. Now I'm going to zip it and hand it over to Mellissa. So everybody, let's see some love. Let's see some clap hand emojis. Give it up for Mellissa.
Thank you so much. Oh
The floor
gosh,
is
thank you
yours,
so
Mellissa.
much. Okay, let me share my screen and hope I don't have any. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes. Can it
Yes?
can you like zoom out or make it full screen?
Let's see. I was playing around with this. Is that better?
Yes, that's
Okay.
better. Yes.
All right.
Great.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Of course, I can't see everyone clearly, but hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. First of all, thank you so much for making the time, taking the time. I know everyone is busy, especially it's evening time. I think, Michael, it's midnight where you are. And I mean, I know of a couple other mentors who may be on this call. Eliza, who comes to mind, and I know it's also very late. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate everyone being here. Roel, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. Glad that I don't have to go into too much about myself, but I will add that yes, I mean, I'm an attorney at law. I specialize in HR and employment law. I've worked in HR, human resources for more than 25 years at companies across the US, the UK, the Caribbean. And in more recent years, I say maybe the last 10 years or so, I've focused a lot of my work on working with startups and SMEs to help them build the frameworks that they need to support them as they scale. And frameworks could be along the lines of their policies, their org charts, their systems, their workflows, anything that's needed on the back end to support them so that they can take their product out to the world and to their market. So over the next hour or so, we are going to talk about something that is reshaping, I would say, the planet or every industry on the planet right now. And that's AI or artificial intelligence, in case you've never heard of it. Who here has never heard of artificial intelligence? And what it means for you in terms of how you lead, how you hire, and how you build policy inside of your startups. And I'm not going to assume that everyone on the call is a startup founder. There may be persons who have established businesses on here. So yes, I will be speaking to you as well. This is also relevant for you. But I'm not going to talk about AI the way that Silicon Valley is talking about it. We're going to talk about it the way that you need to hear it as Caribbean founders and business owners with a real structural opportunity to leapfrog markets that got there first and who made a lot of expensive mistakes along the way that we can learn from and that we can take advantage of to get us ahead. So let's get into it. Okay. So before I go any further, I want to open with one honest question. Is your leadership style a choice or is it just a habit? Now, I know several of you, even if you're startup founders, you may have worked in other companies, you've worked in corporate, so you may have led teams for years. Some of you may be leading teams for the first time right here as a founder of your own startup. Either way, the question is still the same. Are you leading on purpose or are you just doing what's familiar? And I mean, I'm not asking this to put anybody on the spot. It's really just to focus everyone in the room because the pace of change of leadership right now, it's no longer gradual where you get one new thing today or something that you learn every so often and then life settles down and you apply it and you're able to take your time with that. Right now, it's compounding, meaning each shift is building on the last one and it's happening very quickly. In fact, whole things are speeding up the way essentially a snowball rolling down a hill picks up size and momentum and speed. That is what's happening to leadership right now. And the founders and leaders who adapt fastest, who choose their leadership approach deliberately instead of just defaulting to habit or what they've always known or always seen, those are the ones who are going to define what Caribbean business looks like in the next decade. And that is what we're going to touch on today, right? So today's leaders are being reshaped by three forces all at once, sometimes all in the same day, all in the same week. And that's AI, digital transformation, and changing workforce expectations. And we're going to touch on all three of those today, but the overarching theme is very much the same, which is what does it look like to lead well in the age of AI and in the future of work? So the goal is pretty simple in terms of what I'm hoping everyone will walk away with today. I want to give you a very clear, practical road on where AI and digital transformation are taking the future of work across the Caribbean, and also specific usable strategies that you can implement immediately in your startup and in your business. Not someday, but today. We'll talk about global AI trends, what it means specifically for Caribbean founders. And when I say Caribbean, I am speaking of Caribbean and LATAM as well. The leadership skills that you'll need, and also how you build the roles, the policies, and the workflows that would allow you to adopt AI responsibly as you scale. And because I love giving homework in all my training sessions, we'll close with everyone here getting started on your personal action plan specific to your startup or business. This is also, I hope, as much as possible, an interactive session. So we are going to pause for a couple of quick polls that will be, I would say, watched by Adana. And Adana, thank you so much for your assistance with that. And also some discussion prompts, because I do want to hear from you. I want to hear what you're experiencing, what your challenges are. And it's not just for me to know, it's really for all of us here to learn and share and grow together. And we'll also see that many of us are having the same questions about AI, what it means for our business, what it means to be an AI native startup, what does it mean to lead this? A lot of you here have the similar questions, and this is, I promise, a safe space where we can, offload some of our thoughts, but definitely learn and grow together. All right. Now, here's a core idea that I want to sit with all of y'all today. The Caribbean region is not behind in the AI era. We're actually structurally positioned to leapfrog it. And that's because bigger, older economies are dragging enormous legacy systems, legacy contracts, and legacy ways of thinking through this whole AI and digital transformation and transition that we are experiencing around the world. But you see, all the Caribbean founders in this room and those outside of this room, and especially if you're building AI native startups, we're not doing that. We get to design our companies, our rules, our policies around AI from the very start, and even before our first hire. So that 3-person startup in Trinidad or in Barbados or Jamaica with the right tools can do the work of what a 50-person team was needed to do a decade ago. And I mean, let that sit and land with you, right? And because AI rolled out first in larger markets, we've actually had that front row seat to see all their mistakes, all the hard knocks, and definitely all the tough lessons that they have either paid dearly to learn or are still paying dearly to learn. And we could just think about, just this week, this month, this year in the news, all that we've watched play out around the world, where there was some kind of, I'm going to use the word glitch or mishap or misstep, because of building with AI. And I say this to really highlight, the opportunity that we've had to see what's been happening and internalize it. So think of, recruitment and hiring algorithms that quietly screened out candidates for race or gender or disability even before anyone caught it. I mean, that was a big issue in several places for several companies. Data privacy scandals with no consent or disclosure provided to customers, where companies fed customer information into AI tools. And they had to learn that lesson after the fact, like, oops, this is what we should have done instead. And then, of course, we're talking about employee burnout, stress, and fatigue, which is a real pervasive issue around the world. It's being reported across several companies because having always on AI assistants sometimes means for some employees that the workday never actually ends. And then we've had instances where there are customer service bots that are confidently giving out wrong, sometimes harmful advice to customers because nobody was checking their output. or even entire product launches that are pulled back after generating content that was biased, offensive, or just simply false. And every single one of those instances was a very expensive, very public lesson that somebody already paid for. But we don't have to make those same mistakes. We can build the guardrails in from day one, and that's the leapfrog advantage. And it's very real, and it can be readily accessed and achieved by anyone here today. So let's talk about what that looks like. So this is my first poll to wake everyone up because, as I said, this is an interactive session. I want to make sure that nobody's sleeping on me. All right. So before I go on, I want a quick pulse check in the room. In the chat, tell me, what is the biggest challenge that you're facing right now with AI in your business? And it doesn't matter if you're a startup or if you're a business that's been running for a while. Is it simply knowing where to start? Is it getting your co-founders and your team on board? Are you worried about governance and risk? Or are you still trying to figure out which tools are actually worth paying for? So take a couple seconds, drop it in the chat. Don't be shy. This is a no
It's
judgment
coming in.
zone.
It's coming in already, Melissa. They're not shy.
Oh, they're not
Yes, so
shy.
we
Oh, I'm so
have,
glad to
they're
hear
not
that.
shy. Let's see, okay, they're quickly coming. Governance and risk from Mark, which best tools to use, getting my team to adopt, knowing where to start, cost, getting my second customer, best tools to use, best tools again. Okay. So it seems like best tools, cost, tools again. Okay, we have one compliance.
Compliance.
Yeah. Tools.
So you
Okay,
see, so it seems like
tools
several
seems to
of you
be
are thinking about
thing.
this. This is on your minds, right? And these are very valid concerns, definitely. So thank you for sharing. That's Adana. So it seems to be cost and best
Tools
tools
seem
to use.
tools is way ahead.
Tools,
Everyone
which
needs
to,
to say
yes.
tools, and then there's costs, and then we have like the in between compliance, governance, and risk, IP rights and
Okay.
confidentiality. Someone just dropped.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, that's a good one. Thank you so much, y'all. Oh, good. So you're not sleeping. That's good. That was my first proof of life. So very good. So, so let's ground all of this in what is actually happening globally, right? So AI and automation are transforming tasks at a pace that we just have never seen before. I mean, even when they introduced Microsoft Word, it is nowhere near the scale that we're at right now, with AI tools that are capable of handling routine and increasingly complex work with real efficiency and real efficiency gains. But the honest picture is actually a whole lot more nuanced than just saying, well, robots will take over your job, you know? That's because some tasks, not all, are being augmented or supported by AI. So the human is still performing the tasks, but with AI support. And I'll use a very simple example, like, people who use, ChatGPT to help them draft a message or an email or a communication. That responsibility still rests with them, but it's being augmented with AI. As I said, that's a very ridiculously simple example, but it's just to give you some context. But then there are some roles, some tasks, I should say, that are being automated outright. And with those, there's no human touch needed except for maybe final oversight. And in several companies, you will see, for example, like if you go on a website and you have questions about what their products are, there may be a chatbot on the website that you could speak to directly and that can answer all the questions about, yes, our product comes in blue and red and size large and so on and so forth. So that has been fully automated. And of course, and we will touch on this later on about training your AI so that is able to respond accurately, accordingly, and represent not just the company, but also the customer's needs. And then there are entirely new roles that are emerging that we genuinely could not have conceived or described even 2 years ago. And this is actually something that both the co-founders of Founder Institute have actually touched on. Jonathan Grichan, and forgive me if I'm not saying his name correctly, he's one of the co-founders. He wrote about this recently, and he referenced a study by the World Economic Forum, which projects that AI will displace 92 million roles globally by 2030, which when you think about it, that's just now. But in the same window, the World Economic Forum also projects that 170 million new roles will be connected. So there's an expected net gain of 78 million jobs. Now, here's the honest caveat, and I know Jonathan makes a point about this himself in the article that he wrote about it. The jobs that are being created and the jobs being destroyed are not the same jobs, and they don't require the same skills. So then what do some of these new roles actually look like? And that is where Adair Ressi actually wrote about one version of that that matters a lot for persons within this room. And he calls it the startup of one. And his point is that someone who might have lost an entry-level analyst or admin role can now use AI tools to run an entire small business alone. They can use it to do research, drafting, customer support, operations, even validation of their product, work that used to require a whole team. So for Caribbean founders, that is not just an interesting idea. It's actually the whole game. You now don't need a 50-person team to compete anymore. You just need the right AI tools and the willingness to learn them. So the net number, that 78 million, that is real, but it's not a free pass to stand still. Sorry, 107, well, yes, net number of 78 million, that is real, right? Some of those new roles being created aren't job titles sitting inside someone else's company. For a growing number of people, including, I would say, a lot of you in this room, that new role is founder. And that's exactly why we're spending real time today on the skills that let you be one of the people who's building what's next and not left behind by what's disappearing. So what does this mean for you as a founder or a business leader? Well, it has become increasingly apparent that the skills that matter the most have been shifting. And it is really critical that you all keep up because the future of work is actually requiring a greater degree of critical thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence, and judgment to know when to trust an AI out to question it. And then on top of that, whether you deliberately adopted AI tools or not, you better know that your team is almost certainly using them already. So the only real choice that you have right now is whether you shape that adoption intentionally or you let it shape you. And I mean, two guesses, which I would highly recommend be the preferred option in this instance. So one thing to remember is that AI is not operating in isolation, right? It's simultaneously accelerating a handful of other shifts that you also need to keep on your radar, not just because you're a founder or a business owner, but I mean, just the reality of the world that we live in right now. So the first is hybrid and remote work, which means that your team and your customers increasingly can be based anywhere. That is also linked to the gig economy because that allows you to access specialized skills on demand instead of carrying a full-time headcount that you either don't need or may not need all the time. So even what your organization looks like is very different. And that shift is happening alongside AI. Then there's also making data-driven decisions or data literacy, which is knowing how to read your own numbers and act on them. That is now a basic leadership skill because it's no longer something that you can just hand over to that data analyst hire whenever you think you could afford one. Leaders of today and the future of work, this is a skill that they absolutely need to make sure that they have, that they develop, that they're able to understand their own numbers. And then, of course, sustainability and ESG considerations, ESG being environmental, social, and governance. That's increasingly a condition of investors, partners, and talent. that you are definitely expected to take seriously and not just have as, a nice PR line on your website. And I do see companies that have, yes, these are our sustainability and ESG objectives. And then when you dig deeper, they really can't give you any insight into how, what action steps they've taken to meet that. So the expectation is also great in this area. And these trends compound each other so that a founder or business owner who is fluent in AI, comfortable with remote or distributed teams, and data literate is simply going to move faster, be more agile, and definitely more efficient than one who isn't. And that's just the reality. And underneath all of that sits something even more personal. And that's what your team expects from you as a leader, because that has also changed significantly. I would say even within the last 5 years, there's been, absolute changes in this area. And that's because people aren't just asking for flexibility anymore. A lot more employees are asking for purpose. They're asking for growth, for transparency, and for a leader who's honest about what they don't know yet, rather than pretending to know all the answers. Gone are the days when a leader is expected to just say, I know it and just trust me and I'll go along with it. They also want to know, well, okay, are you transparent about what's happening here? And, be honest with me. If it is you don't know, but you're still confident that we're headed in the right direction, please share that with the class rather than pretending otherwise. And that expectation shift is just as real as anything that AI is doing. It's just as important to understand what is needed and expected by your team members in order to lead them effectively. So we just looked at what happens when AI adoption in business goes wrong. So let's flip that and look at here's what building it right actually looks like. Now, these are a few lessons that, and I would even say non-negotiable safeguards that I highly recommend you get right from as early as possible. I'm only going to touch on 4 of them, but this list is not exhaustive at all. There are many more that you could definitely discover along the way. And really all you need to do is a simple LinkedIn search and you'll come across even more. But these are just the 4 that in my experience, I've found that a lot of founders tend to skip until it's already too late. So that's why I'm highlighting them here today. So the first is data privacy. I highly recommend that you bake consent and transparency into your AI tools from day one, not as a policy that you write after one of your customers asks you, well, where did their data go, right? In practice, that means 2 things. 1, a plain language statement at sign up or onboarding for your customers that tells them, hey, this is what your data feeds into and which tools are being used. And then number 2, actually reading the terms of service on the AI tools that you use to check whether your data trains their model or gets shared onward. A lot of founders are not doing that check. And it's really easy to just do that now and get that right now and understand that early, all right? The second is bias. Now, I have here specifically bias in hiring and screening algorithms, but essentially any AI system that's screening, scoring, or deciding something about a person can carry bias. So your customer service chatbot, and a pricing algorithm, a fraud detection tool, a loan or credit approval system if you're in fintech, even how your ads get targeted. Anywhere where AI decides who gets what, bias can quietly creep in. So audit that system before you scale it, not after you've received a complaint. A 5-minute check now is a whole lot cheaper than a legal one later on. And these audits are not just ones that you do once and forget about it. It's highly recommended that they happen regularly because bias is something that can creep back in over time, even after you think you've cleaned it up. And then the third is burnout. So many businesses, as I mentioned, are experiencing real-time productivity and efficiency gains in their operations, but a lot of the times they're not sharing those gains across their teams. So, for example, a business can say, and I'm using very rudimentary examples here for context, before we used to, have an output of 50 widgets, but now we can do 1,000 widgets. And they get very giddy and excited about all of that. But then a lot of times the churn is kept up. That pace is kept up on the employees, on the system, on the people working on their teams, instead of stepping back and saying, well, okay, if it is we can produce so much more, how can we now share those gains with our employees? What does that look like? Can we, reduce what they're doing, incorporate more time for focused work, reduce the work week? There's so many options, and I'm not going to be prescriptive about what they are. But unfortunately, that is just one of the reasons that fatigue and burnout are still so prevalent and pervasive across so many work environments. And the truth is, if your AI tools are always on, the reality is that your team does not have to be. So you can actually design real boundaries into your workflows so that the demand on your employees is eased up rather than increased, which is what has unfortunately been happening in several organizations. Not all, but still several. Right? And then fourth, last but not least, is judgment. For anything high stakes, be it money, health, safety, legal exposure, personal information, keep a human in the loop. Automation should speed up making a decision, but it shouldn't be making it alone or replacing that final human overview and judgment. Now, in practice, that means naming an actual person, not a policy document, who signs off before anything high stakes goes out or is executed. It also means being very honest with yourself about where your bar for high stakes actually sits. And if you're not sure whether something needs a human check, that uncertainty is an answer right there. So definitely something for you to be mindful of and to take stock of. Now, none of this is complicated or expensive to build now. It just has to be intentional. And it's a lot easier to be intentional when you have one or two people in your business than when you've scaled and you've grown and you're at 50. All right. So for those of you who are still in I'm going to use the word fledgling stages of your startup, I'm looking at you. But for everyone, no matter what, these are just very important considerations. However, it's a whole lot easier to put in place when your business, your startup is younger and smaller than, when you've scaled and you're trying to focus on even more growth and you have more people to worry about, right? So then let's bring this in to why I'm saying that the Caribbean region can leapfrog, right? What does this mean specifically for the Caribbean? Many of you in the room are indeed Caribbean founders, and I honestly believe that you are carrying some real structural advantages in this exact moment, in the age of AI. As I mentioned before, you have no legacy tech debt weighing you down. So right now, you can actually build AI native, digitally smart, technology driven businesses from the first line of code, from the first day of acting out all the steps to bring your concept to reality. Additionally, our markets are actually small enough that decisions can move quite quickly. You don't need layers of sign-offs, legal review, cross-department approval meetings just to test something new. You see, in a bigger company, when you're trying to roll out one AI tool, it might mean, you have to get buy-in from IT, legal, compliance, and then 3 different department heads have to say something before anyone is even allowed to try that tool. But here, if it is you are starting, especially an AI native startup or any startup, you and your co-founder can agree that something is worth testing, and you can roll that out by the end of this week, right? And I mean, that's a great advantage to have. And then on top of that, Caribbean founders, especially those who've lived abroad or who have worked well, lived and worked abroad, or who have very strong diaspora ties can carry genuine cross-cultural fluency and global networks that plenty larger, more insular markets simply don't have. And because we're typically not first movers, that actually enables us to be smart adopters because we can watch and observe what worked, what blew up elsewhere, and only bring home and apply what actually works in our context within this region. So that combination, agility, networks, and hindsight, is a real competitive advantage that we should definitely take advantage of and use it. And I've been calling this the regional trifecta. I know it's not very creative, but I am not in marketing. So, all right, don't hold it against me. But this is what it looks like mapped out. So we're agile. This agility allows us to make fast decisions that only require days rather than long-winded layers of bureaucracy. Hindsight is something we benefit from because we're not the first. So we have the luxury of only adopting what actually works because we've had numerous test cases out there that we could look to and say, okay, I saw how that was applied. That is not relevant here, but this is. And so we can, more that so than a lot of the larger markets, we can cherry pick what we can apply here within our region. And then, of course, our networks. The Caribbean region has a substantial diaspora reach that many markets simply don't have. Now, individually, these are three separate advantages. And honestly, me highlighting this here, I did not create this. Each of these areas has been explored to some extent on its own, but rarely, and at least not in my experience, have I heard enough founders and even business owners across the region recognizing that they can be harnessed together collectively as one force that drives this entire region forward. And that is exactly the opportunity that I think we have in front of us right now that we should take advantage of for those of us in this region, because we are ripe for rapid growth, innovation, expansion, advancement, not someday, right now, exactly because of this regional trifecta. So when we stack that agility, that hindsight, and the networks all together, we are not playing catch up. We're actually playing a whole different game entirely, right? As a founder or business owner in the age of AI, based in the Caribbean, this is a massive advantage, and it's one we absolutely cannot afford to ignore or glaze over or turn away from. But of course, this only works if you've got the right people in the building to actually use it. And that's what we're going to talk about next. What are the skills that matter now for the future of work? Ooh. Okay. So what are the skills that matter now? So what should you actually be hiring for and developing in your existing teams, including yourself as a leader, as a founder? Before I get into this list here, I just want to highlight that job roles are evolving quickly right now, faster than most of us are accustomed to. And the role that you hired someone into in January may not look the same in June. And not because anyone did anything wrong, but because the tools, the workflows, and what your business needs have all shifted. They're literally shifting day by day. And that's exactly why the skills that I'm about to walk through now matter so much, because they're not tied to any one job title. They're needed by every single person on your team, regardless of what role they're in, and regardless of how that role evolves over time. Because these particular skills highlighted here on the screen, they let you adapt your roles, your workflows, your processes, your workplace culture, and your leadership style to match where your business is actually trying to go without your people falling apart in the process. So here are 4 things that, are highly recommended to focus on right now. Once again, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are, I would say, the forerunners for consideration by anyone who is trying to lead in the future of work and in the age of AI. So first is AI and data literacy. And I know a lot of people that I speak with, when they hear that term, they feel overwhelmed. They're like, what? I'm not a coder. I'm not an IT person. But this is not speaking necessarily to coding, but it's speaking to the ability to read AI's output critically and know when it's wrong. And that starts with understanding what data that tool has been trained or fed on. And yes, AI tools are trained. And you know that expression, garbage in, garbage out? Well, this also applies, right? So it's understanding what data the tool was trained on and checking the answers that it gives you from a source that you trust before you act on them. And also asking it to show its reasoning rather than just taking the final answer at face value. So please take note of that. The next is critical thinking and judgment. And I'm sure most, if not all of you, have had this experience, if not daily, because knowing an AI's answer might be wrong is only the first step. The hardest skill is judgment. It's recognizing when a decision is too nuanced, it's too high stakes, it's too dependent on context that AI simply would not have, would not know. And it's knowing when to stop or slow down or push back or hand that activity or that decision to a person instead of just, taking whatever the AI comes with. So someone on your team has to own that call, right? And then there's adaptability. And this is quite important. And I would say this because the tools that you're using this quarter will look very different from the tools very different 6 months from now. Let me say it like that. And that happens in two ways. Sometimes the exact tool you're using right now gets a major update overnight, and it changes how it behaves or what it's capable of asking, quite often without your permission, right? This is just a change that the developers have made. A new version of Claude has come out, and you just get the announcement that, yes, it's more powerful and it can do XYZ. Oh, okay, thanks for that heads up. Then other times, it's outgrowing a tool entirely and having to switch to something new because your business has scaled past what the old tool can handle. Now, either way, your team needs to be comfortable with that pace of change. Now, you're not chasing every new release, but you're also not getting so attached to any one tool as if it's permanent either, because that can definitely hold you back. So you need that adaptability. And it also requires some judgment on your part as to, well, okay, when have I outgrown this tool? Or when can I push? Is it that if I stay here, it will make me less competitive? Is it going to hold me back? Is it going to affect my product or service that I provide? And so that adaptability is not just in the adaptability in the tool, but also the adaptability in your own assessment of your need for it and your judgment in whether to stay or move on. And then lastly, but I would consider most importantly, because this one is missed quite often, this would be the human skills. And this would be the soft skills that, so many people love to scorn, unfortunately. Empathy, communication, relationship building, trust. And here's why these matter more now in the age of AI than ever before. You see, once everyone has access to the same tools, the tools themselves stop being your competitive advantage because your competitors can buy the exact same AI that you are using. But what they can't buy is how your team makes people feel. Customers are going to remember when they were treated with genuine care, especially when something goes wrong and AI just can't fix it. And additionally, your employees stay in your business for the leader, not for the AI chatbot. So as AI absorbs more of the routine technical work, the human skills are what's left to actually differentiate you from your competitors. And that is definitely a business advantage, not a soft afterthought extra. So keep that in mind. And here's a practical upside to all of this. You don't have to solve this by hiring new people or getting rid of your people. You can just upskill the team that you already have because it's often faster, cheaper, and it builds more loyalty than just replacing your people. Your existing team already knows your customers, your products, and how you work. So teach them these 4 skills, and you will get all the institutional knowledge, plus the adaptability that this exact moment, the age of AI, demands. And that's a far better return than trying to bring on someone new. So next activity, to make sure you all are awake and that I haven't, sent you all snoozing. Let's do some brainstorming. Let's tap into the collective wisdom of everyone in this room. And I don't know how many of y'all there are, but can you in the chat share one specific opportunity that AI has opened up for your startup or business? And ideally, it's something that genuinely wouldn't have been possible or affordable 2 years ago. And it could be anything. It could be a new product feature. So you don't have to repeat what I have on the screen. It could be your own unique experience. But these are just examples to get you all churning, whether it was a new product feature, a faster way to go to market, a cheaper way to serve your customers, access to a market that you probably couldn't reach before. Drop it in the chat.
Okay,
And let's
Mellissa,
see what y'all have
they are
had.
coming in. I see new product future, faster go-to-market, the ability to produce program modules, increased signal detection, developing new platform. Someone said I can build the platform exactly as I need for $50 versus paying someone 50,000 USD. Faster go-to-market, new way to market products, the ability to execute complicated coding, an affordable way to build apps again, brainstorming new ideas, lower cost. So cost seems to be leading the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Create a personal financial tool for my operations. Yeah, so
Yes, these are
cost,
all real experiences that a
faster
lot of founders
go-to-market.
now are seeing. Earl, I remember you and I had a conversation around this as well, how much easier it is now because of AI to get your startup going in terms of time. And that is a real benefit that I'm encouraging everyone in the room to take advantage of for sure.
Even
Okay.
from a Founder Institute perspective, it shaved almost 4 weeks from our curriculum because of the AI native push. So
Wow.
it's even for an
Wow.
accelerator, it has an impact.
It's accelerated the accelerator. Oh gosh, thanks everyone for sharing. Really appreciate it. So let's talk a bit about AI-ready leadership, because I'm assuming that's why we're all here, right? What does that look like? And I'm just going to touch on a few of them. So first one, digital fluency and strategic agility. I cannot stress enough the extent to which effective leadership in the age of AI and AI native startups requires real digital fluency. And it's not about becoming an engineer or a coder, but it's being comfortable enough with the tools that you use to lead a team that is using them daily. Now, keep in mind that includes leading your virtual or hybrid AI augmented teams with clearly defined expectations, workflows, communication guidelines, instead of just, dropping work on them and hoping everything would work itself out. And what does that look like? Well, that means deciding and writing down things like who reviews an AI drafted customer email before it goes out, and how fast does that review need to happen? It also includes having asynchronous communication tools to enable work across locations or time zones. Think about a founder in, Port of Spain, working with a contractor in Toronto, a customer support rep in Kingston. They're all on different clocks. How do they stay aligned? Well, they could use shared documents and recorded updates instead of forcing everyone on the same 9 a.m. call. You know that expression, this could have been an email, right? This also applies. It also includes having basic cybersecurity awareness, because AI tools often mean new data is flowing into new spaces. So you need to get your head out of the sand and understand what that means. So consider this. one of your employees pasting a customer's ID number or payment details into a free AI chatbot to help draft a reply. That information may now sit on a server that you don't control and can't retrieve. So you need to understand what that means for your business and for your customers and the impact or repercussions that go along with it. It also means leaning on data to make decisions while at the same time knowing the limits of what that data can actually tell you. So your dashboard might show that your website traffic jumped by 40%, but it won't tell you why or whether those visitors actually bought anything. So while the data may start the conversation, it doesn't end it, and you need to know the difference. And it also includes scenario planning, genuinely asking yourself, what happens if this particular tool that I'm using changes overnight, or a competitor undercuts us with AI that we haven't adopted as yet? That's not hypothetical. It's asking yourself right now, if a competitor cut their prices 30% tomorrow morning using AI to automate what currently takes you a full team, what is your 48-hour response or your 1-week response? So digital fluency, as you can see, has now become even more intertwined with strategic agility because of AI. And these are both critical muscles that need to be developed. And as the founders and business leaders across this region who build these muscles now will find themselves being even more easily to out-adapt everyone else later. And then there's emotional and cultural intelligence. And I want to highlight that the technical side of AI adoption, in my view, is really only half of the leadership picture, especially as it pertains to the Caribbean region and the future of work. As AI reshapes roles inside your company, your people will feel it. Some will feel excited, some will be anxious, some people will be a little bit of both. But what does that mean for you as a business owner, a people manager who's leading these people, or even a startup founder who needs to figure out the best approach before bringing people on board? Well, here are some tools for your AI-ready leadership toolkit. The first is self-awareness, because exercising self-awareness in these circumstances is critical because it means understanding and managing your own reaction to technology-driven changes in your business before you try to lead your employees through their reactions, right? So before you tell your team members, hey, we're automating this. This is a new tool that we're using. Take careful notice of your own reaction first. Are you genuinely excited about the efficiency? Or are you quietly relieved that you won't have to deal with the task that you dreaded? Or are you yourself kind of resistant to implementing this tool in the first place because it's going to change the way that you all work? Remember that your team is going to pick up on that energy that you're carrying into that conversation, whether you say it out loud or not. So make sure you understand yourself first. Then, empathy. It's very important to demonstrate empathy towards your team members, which requires you to sit down genuinely with anyone whose role is shifting because of AI or technology changes and walking them through what that means, what happens next, instead of just announcing the change, moving on, and expecting them to just adapt and follow suit. And in practice, that's the difference between a one-line message to someone saying, hey, we're automating this part of your role, and sitting down and saying to them plainly, hey, here's what's changing, here's what's staying with you, and here's what this means for you 6 months from now, right? And then, of course, very important is relationship building and trust. And quite simply, these are things that no AI tool can replace. And they become even more valuable as technical work gets automated. Think about the client who calls you directly when something goes wrong instead of just accepting whatever the chatbot tells them. That relationship, especially if it's one that's built over years, isn't something a competitor can just replicate by buying the same tool that you have. That is yours. So you need to own that and recognize that it was built on the time that you took to build that relationship and the trust that this client now has in you and how you deliver and how you engage with them. And then for Caribbean founders specifically, I've added cultural intelligence, which is the ability to lead diverse, distributed, often diaspora-connected teams. This is a genuine differentiator because of our diverse populations and our exposure to cross-cultural engagements and partnerships. That is just innate across this region. And here's what I mean by that. If you've ever adjusted how you speak on a work call versus with family, I think some people call it code switching. Anyone ever heard of that? Or if you've grown up around relatives who split their time between here in the Caribbean or New York, Toronto, Miami, or London. Or if you've ever navigated a boardroom in the morning and then found yourself in a fete in the evening, sometimes with the exact same persons you were interacting with during the day. You've been practicing cultural intelligence your whole life. Most of us have, without ever calling it that. No one walks around calling it that. The instinct for reading a room and adjusting how you communicate, depending on who's in it, is exactly the skill that lets us lead teams that are split across islands, diaspora hubs, and time zones without forcing everyone into a narrow way of working. And larger, more homogeneous markets often have to teach this skill in a workshop, but for us, it's actually closer to our native fluency. And this is the human side of the leapfrog story that I'm talking about. And I strongly believe it matters just as much as the technology. Now, I want to say this, and I mean, I've said it before, but I'll repeat it again. None of this requires any of us to have all the answers. We're leading through uncertainty, and that doesn't mean that we need to be certain about or know everything or have all the answers, but it is about being honest with our team members about what we don't know yet, while still moving forward with confidence in our own judgment. And that is what confident leadership looks like right now and in the future of work. All right. So let's talk about our roles, our policies, and our workflows. Now, this is part of your homework. I did mention homework, right? Yes, I did at the very beginning. So you can't say I didn't say it. This is a part of today's session that I want all of y'all to act on after you leave here today. You see, AI adoption fails or backfires when businesses just drop a new tool onto old job descriptions and workflows and just hope for the best. But instead, I urge everyone here, especially if you already have these in place, to look honestly at your job roles. As AI absorbs the routine parts of any job, look at what's left for the human employee, and is that reflected in the way that you've written a role and how you are evaluating it? And I could say with absolute certainty that for a lot of you, it probably isn't. Second, write the policy. Even if it's just a one-page acceptable use policy that says which tools your team can use, what data can and can't go into them, when AI-generated work needs to be disclosed, you want that policy to exist before something goes wrong, not as a reaction afterwards when you're scrambling in the moment to try to figure out what should have been done or should have been covered. Next is mapping your workflows so that it's very clear where AI does the first pass and where a human must do the review, or approve or escalate, depending on the scenario, especially when it's touching anything that concerns customer personal information, money, health, safety, legal exposure. And I mean, there are definitely other things that are coming to light in terms of where there needs to be a definite review by any AI-generated output. And then finally, have a quarterly review on your calendar for all of these, because the tools you're using today will not necessarily be the tools that you're using in 12 months. So you need to ensure that this area is regularly audited and kept up to date. And this is exactly the kind of foundational work that all founders and business leaders should walk through and build out in depth as early as possible if they want to be sustainable and resilient in the future of work. Now, let's talk more about policies, right? Now, here's even more homework for you. Did everyone write down the homework from before? Well, this is a continuation, right? So we just talked about the mindset, which is the roles, the policies, the workflows that should be built deliberately instead of just tacking them on to what is already there. So let's talk more about what those action steps and policies are to actually support that. If you do nothing else after today, if you, just walk out of the session and you throw everything out of your mind, I beg of you, please, to at least not just take note of, but actually execute these 4 things that I have up here on the screen. The first is your employment and engagement contracts. And that would cover what the role is, the salary, of course, the IP assignment, that's very important. And of course, the confidentiality, right? And who has access to what information and how they're using it. When you write these contracts, I urge you now to write them to be flexible so that they adapt as the role evolves. Because the role that you hired someone for in January, and I said this before and I keep saying it again over and over again, is not going to be the role that they're doing in June, especially for AI augmented, AI supported roles, right? And so your contracts should not pretend otherwise. We can no longer afford to have these static employment contracts and engagement contracts that we think could just last years by using I would say old-timey wording. That just cannot work anymore. Next, please draft a disciplinary and grievance policy. Now, keep in mind, the average employee handbook has way more than 4 policies. I'm only highlighting 4, right? So that you're getting off very easy, actually. Now, a disciplinary and grievance policy sounds onerous. It sounds bureaucratic. Yes, I know. But I cannot say enough that when you have a fair documented process in place, this is what protects you and your team when something goes wrong. And believe me, you do not want to be subjected to, an employee has a complaint against another employee, or, you're dealing with performance issues that then need to be tackled with through progressive discipline, and then trying to scramble and create that in the moment. Because I guarantee you, I've seen it happen time and time again. That's when major mistakes happen that definitely end up in court. You do not want that. So as your homework from today, by Monday, this is definitely a policy. I highly recommend that you make sure that you get it in place. The next is a data protection policy that clearly outlines how you collect, store, and use personal data, and then that also speaks to what does and what doesn't get fed into your AI tools. That's very important, and it's not just for you and members of your team, but also if challenged and called upon for you to demonstrate to your customers. So this is very important to have. And then 4th, and a lot of people skip this, but this is very important, an AI use policy. Which tools are approved? Who owns AI-assisted work? What's confidential? And then also what is never to go into a tool for any reason. That needs to be clearly spelled out for you and your team. Once again, if challenged, it may be something that you may have to demonstrate to your customers. Hey, we don't put this information into these tools, all right? This information is kept separate and confidential. And some customers may need that assurance. Not even just customers, even your employees, right? So make sure that you have your AI use policy in place. Now, none of these in the first instance needs to be perfect. It doesn't need to be long. I've had people ask me, hey, can I, use ChatGPT to draft a first draft? Great. I'm an HR consultant. Of course, I would try to tout myself and say, hey, why don't you come to me to develop it? But I live in reality where I know that, yes, people do use tools to help them draft it, especially to get you started. And that's great. It could be a simple 1-page version. And at the end of the day, having something in place, even though it's simple, beats having nothing in place after something has already gone wrong. However, keep in mind that simple templates are just a starting point. They're not a safety net. And they could only cover you for so much for so long. So in the moment where you think there may be a real dispute or your risk becomes more complex, which as you scale, it does, I would highly recommend that you seek, be it legal advice, HR advice, bring in someone who specializes in this, but get the first draft down now while things are still relatively quiet, right? So now this is another proof of life check to see that everyone is awake, all right? So let's put everything we covered into a practice with a real scenario, right? Now, let me just say this first. There's no right answer, so don't beat yourself up on whatever you've given as your response. But picture this. You have a 5-person team. You've just adopted an AI tool that now handles roughly a third of one of your team members' role. You don't have an HR department to lean on, which is actually quite common in a lot of startups and smaller companies, right? It's just you and your co-founders. What's going to be your first move? Is it A, do you just go and talk to that person directly before doing anything else? Is it B, do you sit down and write a short policy on how and when that tool gets used? Is it C, do you redesign the role itself so that it's clear what's expected now? Or is it D, do you simply set a 30-day check-in to see how it's actually just playing out? So share your instinct and initial thoughts in the chat. Let's hear what y'all are thinking.
Okay, we are seeing a lot of A's coming in, Mellissa. So we are seeing A. Yeah, mainly
Yeah, a lot of A's.
A. We
Now,
have
as I said,
one B. Somebody said A to B.
somebody went B,
B. B. There's 2 B's now, 1 D.
D,
Yeah, but it's mainly A.
mainly A. Okay,
Yeah.
this is good to know. Good to know. Thanks for sharing. And as I said, there is no single one right answer, but I will tell you that the founders and business leaders who think this through in advance handle it very differently than the ones who improvise in the moment. So think long and hard about this question because this could be you very soon in the future. And think about how you want to be able to adapt in that moment and address it in that moment. If you want to fall in the bucket of A, B, C, or D. Yeah. So then let's build. How do we build for the long run? Let's talk a little bit about how adopting AI into our businesses and building AI native startups can drive sustainability and resilience. Now, given the Caribbean region's exposure to climate and economic shocks, resilience is not an abstract thing for us. And that's why it's actually a leadership must. The encouraging news is that AI genuinely helps us with better forecasting, better monitoring, better early warning for the risks that our businesses can face. But at the same time, sustainability and ESG factors and practices are increasingly what investors and customers expect to see demonstrated and baked into how we operate, not just a brief one-line mention in a press release or on our website. So resilience isn't only about what's happening right now in your company. It's also about harnessing and being strengthened by our regional networks and collaboration that we've already talked about early in this session. So founders and business leaders who treat resilience as an ongoing discipline that's revisited regularly, these are the ones that tend to still be standing generally and also thriving when the next shockwave hit, when the next shockwave or natural disaster or mind-bending trend hits, right? And here's a bit of an example that I'm using as an illustration. It's a bit of a composite that I've drawn from different patterns I've seen with different founders that I've worked with. It's not based on any single named company. So if there's anyone in the room who, may have worked with me, I'm not talking about you specifically. So I want you to picture this, right? A 3-person Caribbean fintech startup using AI tools to handle compliance monitoring and customer support at a level that would have once required a much larger team. Now, before they scaled their customer base, what they did, the founders, they sat down and they wrote a very simple 1-page policy covering what data can go into their AI tools and when customers need to be told that AI was involved. Now, that one decision made quite early and when they were actually very small actually meant that they sidestepped the bias and the data privacy pitfalls that larger, early adopting markets learned about the hard way, often after real reputational damage. And so the result is that their service delivery for this Caribbean company looks and feels global caliber without carrying the legacy risks that came with getting there first. Now, that is the leapfrog advantage in practice. And I want all of that, I hope that lands with all of you here today in terms of what the possibilities are for you. So here's one action for Monday morning, more homework. Yes. The real value of this session is what you do with it long after, the session is done and we've logged off. So I want you to write down, if you can, please, one specific concrete action that you will take on or before Monday. Not next month, not next quarter, but this Monday. Today's Thursday, so this Monday. That would make your startup or business more AI ready. And that could be, I have some examples here, but this is not meant to be, prescriptive in any way. But it could be drafting your AI use policy. It could be redesigning one of the roles in your business so that it reflects what AI now handles. It could be mapping workflows to show what AI should handle and where a human needs to step in. Or it could be committing to learning one future-ready skill yourself. If you're comfortable, feel free to drop it in the chat. Safe space, no judgment. We're all here to learn. And it would help all of us, of course, to see, the things that we want to challenge ourselves to achieve, especially in such a short turnaround time of Monday. Monday, not Tuesday, y'all. Monday. Adana, anything in the chat?
Yes, Mario said, read the AI terms and conditions. Marlene said AI workflow. See Dr. Jose saying learning one skill. Juliet's learn one new skill. Andre, AI usage policy and workflow. Sash, learn one new skill. Seeing drafter, use of AI policy, learn a new skill. Okay, we have a few more
Lots of learning. In fact, all of y'all, learning is important. Yeah. But if you do that by Monday, I am very impressed and appreciative. Great. So we are actually coming to the end of this session. And before, we head into the Q&A, because we do have a Q&A in this role, we still have Q&A, yes?
We're close to time, so
okay.
We'll manage as best as we can.
We manage as we can. Well, hopefully nobody should have that many questions. Hopefully all the homework should keep them occupied, But I just want to encourage everyone to keep building on what we've covered today, because your learning journey, it does not end when this session ends. I encourage everyone to stay connected with the FI Caribbean Network. The mentors and founders in this session right now and across the region are exactly the kind of community that we want to be compounding around us, all right? So I highly encourage all of you here tonight to share your LinkedIn profiles in the chat and connect with each other, right? Because you can learn from each other. We can gain expertise, experience, insights about how we've been adopting AI in our respective businesses, building our AI startups. And there's also opportunity to explore collaborative projects and initiatives. Yes, we can work together with each other and build even more together. If you found today's session helpful in any way, just a heads up, this is actually part of a longer online training on the HR Horizon platform with the same title, Leading the Caribbean Region into the Future of Work. As just to show appreciation for everyone who's attended today, we've created a special 50% off coupon code for everyone. If you want to either check out that training or actually any of the products and services available on the HR Horizon website, You can use lead 26 at checkout. We have several things on there that you can access that can support your business, not just from an HR perspective, but just from developing the frameworks that you need in order to support you as you scale and grow. And I'll move on to our Q&A. Thank you so much, everyone. Y'all have been a really fantastic audience. Thank you so much. I cannot stress enough that the Caribbean has the talent, the creativity, the ambition to lead in the future of work. And we just need to ensure that we are preparing ourselves and our leaders to make that happen. And, just by you being here tonight, it shows that you are ready to not just take that path, but to commit to that. So thank you so much for your energy, your engagement today. This is exactly the kind of thing that, I hope you all take back into your businesses this week and take advantage of and implement immediately. And we did cover a lot of ground. Just as a quick recap, we looked at, where AI is genuinely taking the future of work, why the Caribbean is positioned to leapfrog rather than lag, the leadership skills that this moment demands, and how to build the roles, policies, workflows that let you adopt AI responsibly. Thank you so much, everyone. All the best. Waiting for your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mellissa. All right. So let's use the raise hand feature. Unmute, raise your hand, unmute. We'll call on you. I think we can take a few questions before we have to drop off. Andre, you got the floor, buddy. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Andre was quick on the draw.
Yeah, so I just have a question, and it's around AI. So for a web-based product where we put a starting terms and conditions, and we put that to users, what's the AI aspect or policy, or how do we incorporate that AI where we have a user onto the other, and what they could do with maybe the data from our platform, and put that data into AI and maybe come back with a challenge against us? Is there something there that we should incorporate in terms of an AI, even terms in our terms and conditions, and a policy within our company in relation to that?
Okay, Andrew, let me make sure I understand this. So you yourself have developed an AI tool, is that what you're saying?
No, it's just a web-based product. It's just a web. It does use AI though.
A web-based product that uses AI, and the customer now enters their data or information in order to get a particular
result.
output.
Yes.
Right. And
go on.
No, sorry. I just want to make sure I understand. So then the question is around if there's an issue with the output or an issue with.
Correct. So there's a conflict. They take your data or the output, put it into their AI, and then that creates an issue, and they come back with a legal challenge against your company or something in that respect. Is there something in our terms and conditions that we should incorporate and how they use our output and then put it into AI, if you like?
How they use your output. Okay. Oof, that's an interesting question and very, very specific. I would say at the very least, from the get-go, you need to have disclosures and disclaimers about on your product, so that when customers are signing on and being onboarded, there is a statement around, what this output is based on. And I mean, I'm trying, of course, to think I'm trying to think of your question and think of, well, how does that, what scenario will that bring about in practice? So I'm flying a little bit blind here. But I would say at the end of the day, you do need to provide some statements to your customers that it could be a term and condition of that engagement that they have with you, or to use your product along the lines of, please be mindful the information you put into here, the AI output is based on the information that you've put. If the data is inaccurate or is skewed or does not provide a full picture, then that affects the output, or it affects what the system is able to generate for you. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question because I'm trying to in real time and think of a scenario. But no matter what, if you have customers engaging with you where they're putting in information into your product and there is an AI tool that's being used, there should definitely be a statement to that customer, even if it's just in the terms and conditions of use or the engagement contract that speaks to, please be mindful of what you put in may affect what is coming out. This is AI, it's based on XYZ, it's used in this way. It may give different results depending on, other users' inputs. So it is recommended that you do at least have a statement there to give notice to the customer of what to expect. Am I answering your question at all? And I
Yeah,
feel
you
as though I
are.
need to bring in Nikkei in here to weigh
You,
in
you
as
are,
well.
you are. You're basically highlighting the need for disclaimers and any misrepresentations from the data, that where AI products are used, etc., and trying to, obviously shift the liability in some way from the company, and so obviously, portray a picture of the what's the product is in terms of the data that it outputs as well. So yeah, you answered it very well. Thank you.
And at the end of the day, I mean, I'm glad that it helped, but at the end of the day, I always tell people the more upfront and transparent you can be. I mean, of course, you're not going to tell your customers all the nitty-gritty of what's happening in the behind the scenes, but the more upfront you can be in writing, especially about, hey, this is what you can expect, and this is what can change, and this is what can influence what output you're going to get. And once those expectations are clearly stated and also updated, because of course, I'm assuming if it is you're using AI on the back end, there are going to be updates and changes, and you keep your customer abreast of that, the better it is for you from a liability perspective, of course. All right.
All right,
Gosh,
thank you.
Andre, you started the hard question out the gate. Thank you.
All right, we'll take Nadine next, and we'll have time for one more, and then we'll start wrapping up. Nadine, you're not on mute.
Hi, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make a quick one. I don't know if I missed. Are the slides going to be available after?
Yes, I will share the slides. Yes.
Okay, great. And then two, as someone with a background in economics and research, I just want to push back a little bit on the claim you made that we are uniquely positioned to leapfrog in the realm of AI because we have historically been behind or lagging in data collection and the creation of open source databases, the implementation of policy, digital policy. We have some major hurdles to overcome, even though we are uniquely positioned. We have some serious challenges to try and quickly overcome.
I am not disagreeing with that at all. Yes, we do. But even with those challenges, we still, I'm speaking to, in fact, I'm speaking to everyone in the room. We still can take advantage of watching what's already happened. And if it is we're starting our businesses, we're starting our AI native startups, we are able to a whole lot more easily identify what works and what doesn't work and what can be applied in our region. I mean, yes, from a statistical perspective and definitely from a national policy perspective, we have a lot of work to be done. But at the same time, I don't think that prevents startups in this region from, learning from the lessons that have already been learned or being learned and skipping those mistakes ourselves and adopting what works best for us, especially now that we have AI tools at our disposal. Am I making sense?
Yeah, yes, you're making sense. But the data that goes into our responses using AI tools would be limited to the limited data that exists. And so for example, most of the developing countries have labor market platforms that are publicly available. So you get salary information, you get all the existing occupations that are available.
Yes.
What are the projected demands for different occupations? There's nothing like that in the Caribbean.
Yeah. Well, it's very poorly tracked, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Is
yes,
it
so in
tracked at all?
specific to that, yes, specific to that, yeah, I hands down, there's a challenge.
But that is one example. So somebody with a background in research and market research, quite often, what when you're doing secondary research, we quite often look to sources outside of the Caribbean for information on the Caribbean. So it's something that I'm not saying that what you're saying is incorrect, but it's not all a bed of roses. We do have our challenges
It is not a bed of
overcome.
roses. Agreed, 100%. It is definitely not a bed of roses. And I'm sorry if the takeaway is that, the feeling that I've ignored or negated that. I haven't at all. I feel as though that what you've mentioned, has been a topic of conversation across the entire region and in each, in each country for many years in terms of our, poor tracking of our, data, just people data, disability data, work data. Yes, so that is a fact. I'm not negating that at all. However, even with that, I am just saying, even in face of those challenges, those are not, I would say, sufficient to prevent Caribbean startups from leapfrogging using AI tools, using the lessons learned, using the information that is a lot more readily available, and using the tools that allow us to build faster with less people from taking a concept and building it out. Granted, there may be challenges in some areas more than others, but that does not mean that the opportunity does not exist and shouldn't be explored at the very least and taken advantage of. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
But you've raised a very valid point. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nadine. Any other questions? We will take one more and then we're gonna wrap it up. All right, so I take that as no more questions. All
I
right.
tired them out, Roll. They're exhausted.
Before we all jump off, though, we'd like to take a group photo. So maybe Mellissa, right? Great. Stop sharing. Awesome. Adana, I don't know how you're gonna get everyone on the frame, but if everyone could put their cameras on, if you would like to be in the photo, put your cameras on. If not, that's okay as well. We don't want to force anyone. But big smiles, because you know why? Tomorrow is Friday.
I see the cameras coming on. Marlene says,
Wait,
I look a
should
hot
we
mess. Don't worry, Marlene. You can still come on.
Adana, should we remove
Yeah.
the spotlight so that we capture everyone on the screen? Because for
No,
me,
no,
it's still...
I could set it up where I'm seeing everyone. It's
Oh,
just that
okay.
it will be split into two.
Perfect.
So I'm seeing
Perfect.
cameras coming on. So while I organize
Well,
that, I'll give you all a minute to.
here is my empty beer glass. Big smiles for Friday.
Okay, well, I will do a countdown so everybody gets ready. Come back, make sure that my screen is set up. Okay. Okay, guys, so we're gonna take the picture now. 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, let me make sure that's okay. Let's save the second slide if there are more people on there with their cameras on.
Sasha, I see you. Your hair looks good. Your hair looks good. Don't worry. Looks good.
Okay, it seems like okay, we got the full screen.
All right.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Oh wait, you got the second one as well? I don't know.
I got well, yeah, I got it. The first,
Oh, all
yeah,
right.
yeah. But everyone who
Wonderful.
has their cameras on.
Thank you again to Mellissa for crushing it this evening, for being our Lone Star keynote speaker. Give it up again. Thank you, Mellissa. And to everyone who's participating in Caribbean Startup Bootcamp, this is one of 4 events that we're going to host for you, one per month. And then in December, it culminates with our graduation demo day for our wider FI community. Our next cohort kicks off in October. So if you haven't applied as yet, applications are open, fi.co. Thank you all. Thank you to our donors. Thank you to our sponsors. Everyone have a great night. Safe, enjoyable weekend ahead. It's Friday Eve. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.